So he stepped into a challenging position, and he needs to get himself acclimated to what needs to be done, and I'm sure he knows what needs to be done. But I thought I'd just let you folks in the audience know that this is a new job for him. He's going to make a presentation to us, and I'm sure he's going to share some interesting things for our business community and our community at large. Joe Lota was nominated by Governor Andrew Cuomo and confirmed by the New York State Senate as the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, better known as the MTA, in January 2012. The MTA is the largest mass transit provider in the United States, serving 8.5 million customers daily. The MTA also has 9 bridges and tunnels in the New York metropolitan area, which also makes the MTA the largest tolling agency in the country. Mr. Lota has extensive experience in both the private and public sectors. Before joining MTA, he served as Executive Vice President for the Madison Square Garden Company, better known as MSG, where he was responsible for the development and execution of company-wide human resource strategies, government affairs, information technology, facilities and real estate, and an array of corporate services. Prior to MSG, Mr. Lota was an Executive Vice President of Cablevision Systems Corporation. He was also Deputy Mayor for Operations in the administration of Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, where he oversaw day-to-day management of the city agencies. As a Deputy Mayor, Mr. Lota was instrumental in developing and implementing the innovative strategies and initiatives that accomplished the successful turnaround of the city, as well as the city's coordinated response after September 11, 2001. Before being appointed Deputy Mayor, Mr. Lota was the city's budget director, managing the city's $36 billion operating budget and $45 million capital budget. Prior to his government service, Joe had a 15-year career in investment banking at First Boston and Payne Whitmer. Mr. Lota is a trustee of the City University of New York and serves as the chairman of the university's Fiscal Affairs Committee. He's also a member of the Board of Directors of First Aviation Services. Mr. Lota is a resident of Brooklyn Heights. My father was born in Brooklyn. Pitkin and Hopkinson Avenue, Brownsville. Thought I dropped it. He's a cum laude graduate of Georgetown University and received his MBA from the Harvard Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a warm Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce welcome to Mr. Joseph Lota, MTA Chairman and CEO.
Good morning, everyone, and Charlie, thank you for that kind introduction. I didn't know you knew my mother to get all that information. Very few people know that. She emailed you. Good. Also want to thank, as we introduced before, Jim Sidor. I want to tell you, Jim Sidor has been on the board of directors of the MTA for almost 20 years, and he is without a doubt he is the finest board member that we have. He's the most active. He's chairman of the Metro North Committee. And quite honestly, it's somebody who I rely on, and I know that Howard Permit, who was introduced earlier as president of Metro North, who also relies on Jim Sidor. So Jim, thank you for everything that you do. I would be remiss if I also didn't reintroduce again Mark Molinaro, the county executive, as well as State Senator Steve Saland is also here, and I also understand that Assembly Member Dee Dee Barrett is also here. Thank you both, and thank you for your support. You know, even though Metro North is a member of the chamber, someone told me coming in here is going to be like entering the lion's den. And quite honestly, when I entered today and I saw it was a Funeral Directors Association meeting, I actually thought, oh, that editorial board, they're going to get their way. They're going to kill the MTA. I know the MTA up here and the reputation, it's interesting. I've read the editorials. I even made the mistake of responding to one of them. I've heard it all. You know, we've been called fat, we've been called bloated, we've been called inefficient, and I'll admit those labels may have fit. They may have fit once, but I don't believe they exist today. First off, I will state right up front, the MTA does not have, and as far as I'm concerned, has never had 2 sets of books. In 2003, the State Appellate Division ruled that we never had 2 sets of books. But, you know, we're much more than that. I can tell you this, it's a new day at the MTA. Because today, more than ever, we're listening to people, we're paying attention, we're cutting costs every single day, and we're becoming a leaner, more responsible, more efficient, and more accountable organization. Just in this past year, we cut $700 million out of our annual operating budget. And those savings recur year after year, and I expect that by 2016, we will have received savings in the area of close to $1 billion, and that's recurring savings year over year. We've eliminated 3,500 jobs. 20% of the administrative headquarters staff has been cut. 15% of all of the executive and administrative staffs at the operating agencies, Metro North, Long Island Railroad, the New York City Transit Authority, and Bridges and Tunnels, they too have been cut. We've renegotiated every vendor contract we possibly could. We have had frozen wages for the non-represented employees for the last 4 years. And I will tell you as an aside, you would know as folks who run businesses, both small, medium, and large, when you have managers that haven't had a pay increase in 4 years, it becomes quite difficult because costs have gone up. But we're doing everything we can at the MTA to understand that we have to get our house in order. We've rebid healthcare. We've done everything. We've done the small stuff as well. My predecessor, Jay Walder, was faced with all kinds of problems. He had one example that I love to talk about. He had 117 separate customer service phone numbers, depending on which ones to call. It's all been consolidated into one. If you want to find out what train's on time or what's coming in, all you have to do is call 511 for anywhere within the MTA network. And as I said, we've done the small stuff. We've eliminated 20% of our cell phones. We've eliminated many, almost 1,500 of our printers. You don't need, everybody doesn't need a printer. You can share a printer. And one of the things I learned when I was budget director in New York City under Rudy Giuliani, you got to do the little stuff. If you do the little stuff, it almost guarantees that you also do the big stuff. So that's where the focus has been. Metro North, they've achieved over $100 million of savings in the past year. They strengthened payroll controls. They implemented new forecasting for inventory procurement, so we're not overspending in that area. And as I said before, they've cut administrative staff by 15%. In the first 5 months of this year, Metro North has slashed overtime costs by almost $2 million. And the results of these savings, and this is the really important part to look at it, in a period of time when the region has been experiencing 2.8% inflation, our discretionary costs have gone up 0.6 of 1%, and that's in the last fiscal year. We're on track this year for our discretionary costs to be spending less in 2012 than we spent in 2011. And that's a significant achievement. That rarely happens anywhere in the government world. It's never happened at the MTA before. And I think it's worth talking about again and again and again. We're going to spend more, we're going to spend less on discretionary costs than we did this year than we did last year. Now, of course, I describe that as discretionary costs. What are non-discretionary costs? My pension costs, the MTA's pension costs are growing at almost double-digit rates, at 10% rates. And I've tried and I will continue to work with the state legislature to deal with that problem and rein in that cost. Our healthcare costs, you all know what healthcare costs for your employees. It grows anywhere from 8% to 12% every year, year in and year out. We've got to find a way to control that. We've got to find ways for our employees to pay a little bit more. We also have to find ways to structure that program. But there's a lot more to running the MTA than worrying about costs. That's a part of it, and it's a major part of what I do. As was mentioned earlier, we're the largest transit agency in the world. 8.5 million people touch the MTA day in and day out. 280,000 of them are in Metro North alone. Our number one job, I believe, is providing great service, moving people reliably, moving them affordably, and most importantly, moving them safely. Now I'll admit that the MTA, when the MTA first took over the Conrail system back in 1983, the Metro North system, we were probably falling short of that goal, especially on the reliability part. Back then, keeping the system together was an everyday struggle. While we struggle every day, it nowhere near has the results that it used to be. Back then, a full 20% of Metro North trains showed up late. I get an email every morning at about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I don't know how it happens, but it sets off a certain ping. I've been trying to figure out how to stop that ping. But what it tells me every day is the on-time performance for Metro North. It's just specifically for Metro North. And the Hudson line yesterday was at 99% on-time performance. The average. And I remind Howard all the time, every time I get that report, it reminds me of my temperature. It hovers somewhere about 98.6 to 99%. So I laugh every time I see it. And there are days, when the trees fall and the bad weather that we've been experiencing that will have an impact on-time performance. But what you will note that's different today than what it used to be is that when a tree falls down, we're ready to take it off and get the system back up and running, or bring buses out to move our customers from wherever they are to wherever they need to be. It is very important, and the customer-based focus that I have, and everybody at the MTA is focused on, is critical in making sure that we do everything reliably and safely. This year, both the Hudson and the Harlem lines, fewer than 2% of Metro North trains are late, which is what I was just talking about. Just look at how far we've come in Dutchess County since 2000, when we opened up the new stations in the Hudson Valley and extended the Harlem line up to Wasaya. Since then, we've added 1,300 new parking spaces in Dutchess County, some of which I think, if I remember reading all of this, was somewhat controversial, but we have 4,500 parking spots here in the county. We've increased the AM and PM peak service on the Hudson line by 40%. We've added more cars to our trains, faster trains. You have express service from Beacon to Grand Central. It takes 70 minutes to get into the city. Or from Poughkeepsie to Grand Central in a little over 90 minutes. You know if you drive, you simply can't get there as quickly and as efficiently as you can on Metro North. And one thing you should also know, because it's quite unique to Dutchess County, there is no other county in the country, there's no other location in the United States where you can have nonstop commuter service 60 miles from a city center like you have here in New York, in Dutchess County going into New York. It is quite unique. And we're not stopping there. I'll give you a list of some of the improvements we've just made in the last year. We've increased express service to the upper Hudson line again. We've added off-peak Hudson line trains in the evening. We've added quiet car service on all of the peak train system-wide. And I know I wanted to see who actually was clapping first. What we have noticed, interestingly enough, is that our women customers, our women riders, love the quiet car. I don't understand the demographic, but we're going to need to expand it even more overall. And we'll introduce new services with real-time information. You can actually find out when your train is coming on your cell phone or on your computer or on your iPad or iPhone. And the best thing about all of these service improvements is the increased reliability. You know you can rely on Metro North. Metro North, you should also know, is the largest commuter rail line. Not only is the MTA the largest transit system in the country, Metro North itself is the largest commuter rail line in the country. It carries more people every day than any other commuter rail line. What's interesting about that, its growth has been phenomenal. Metro North ridership has doubled since its founding in 1983. But here in Dutchess County, it's quadrupled since 1983. Ridership here on Metro North has gone up 350%. And those statistics speak volumes, but to me what's interesting about that growth is actually where it's occurring. In the past few years, it's not people who are going into Grand Central in the morning and then coming back home here to the county at night. It's the reverse commutes, and it's travel between suburban locations that in its off-peak hours and on the weekends. And that growth is growing every single week, week in and week out in this past 2 years. We're on track to move more than 85 million customers this year, up from the 82 million last year. Next year, and the numbers keep growing and growing and growing as we're seeing the projections. If you want to compare that, because I keep talking about the fact that we're the largest, Metro North is the largest in the country, let me compare it to Amtrak. Amtrak, which goes everywhere in the United States, 46 of the 50 states is where they serve. Metro North moves more people in 4 months than Amtrak does all year. Its incredible growth is the main reason why I think Metro North and Dutchess County are making out so, and I know that they've made out so well in the sweeping investments that we've made in new services that was announced just a month ago. Adding $29 million in investments will help add 230 more Metro North trains every week, starting in the beginning of next year. We're also going to mostly add cars on weekend trains. That'll make them less crowded and more comfortable. We're going to increase the number of east of Hudson trains by 6% on Saturdays, 16% on Sundays. Most off-peak and weekend trains on the Upper Hudson line will run express. It's going to save those folks who are going into the city anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes on their trip into the city. And believe me, when someone's late 2 minutes, I hear about it. So that when you get somebody there faster by 15 to 20 minutes, it is significant. The Upper Hudson lines will connect directly to local trains at Croton Harmon, probably eliminating almost a half an hour wait for the local train. All in all, the new package of service investments are the largest expansion of service that Metro North has received or created since its inception in 1983. For the long term, we're looking for the possibility of bringing the Hudson and New Haven lines directly into Penn Station, so that possibility of not just terminating at Grand Central Terminal, but the ability to use the Amtrak lines and go into Penn Station. For those people who come in from the county and go into the city and then have to take a subway line over to the west side or somewhere else, will now be able to, with this opportunity to move to the west side, you could save upwards of a half an hour in both directions each time, and almost an hour a day on someone's commute. And that's all about quality of life. It'll get them home faster with their family and their children. To be sure, there are a lot of details to work out. I cannot think of anything more complicated than trying to convince Long Island Railroad to move aside a little bit, let Metro North in. It's something Jim Sidor and I talk about all the time. It's not easy. Howard and I talk about it even more often than that. Penn Station is extremely crowded. It's got 21 tracks. It's had 21 tracks for almost the last 100 years. The only thing that's changed are the number of trains that go in and out of it. It's shared by Amtrak, who owns Penn Station, with the other tenants of the Long Island Railroad, as well as New Jersey Transit. It is the largest single commuter station, again, in the United States. And we want to make sure that the folks in Metro North have an opportunity to move in there. And I do believe that as we move closer and closer to what we call East Side Access, allowing folks in the Long Island Railroad to terminate at Grand Central Terminal, we must allow the people who ride Metro North to also terminate within the West Side and Penn Station. The bottom line is pretty simple. A more efficient MTA is moving more customers to and from Hudson Valley every day. And I think it's great news for all of you, small business owners here today, realtors, developers, anyone involved in technology, construction, whatever industry you're in. You'll understand that Metro North is opening up Dutchess County to residents. And I know it gets a little weird when I talk about this, but we actually poll our customers. And one of the things that we found out is that, you know, a lot of the people who work in New York City and live up here are very much in high-paying jobs. The average household income of the Metro North customer in and out of Dutchess County averages over $115,000 a year. And when you compare that to it's about 66% higher than the average for the county. So it means high-income wage earners are bringing their money back to Dutchess County. They're living here and they're spending their money here. But even more than that, you understand that we make it possible to live here but work in Manhattan. And it's a great trade-off to be able to live here and not have to work and be able to get in and out of the city with great ease. You've witnessed Dutchess County's growth since we first introduced the service here. You've seen the counties, and quite honestly, this is the most impressive statistics about any county in any part of the state of New York. You've had 6% growth of population since 2000. Very few counties can talk about this. But more importantly, you've seen your employment since the year 2000 shoot up 9%. There is no county in upstate New York. Actually, I don't think there's any county, including the 5 boroughs of New York, that have that kind of almost double-digit growth in employment. We've also started promotional packages, meaning a lot for this region. As I mentioned before, we've got people coming up on the weekends. We've got 7 different tourist packages working with the Visitors Bureau and folks here in the county to bring them up to the museum and Beacon and various other things. We estimate that we've brought up between 17,000 and 2,000 separate customers or up and trips to the county overall just to visit up here. And that's proof positive that we're bringing people not only to jobs in the city, but we're also bringing them up here to Dutchess County so they can spend their money here. Overall, I think you understand Metro North's incredible growth doesn't merely reflect the growth of Dutchess County, but in fact, Metro North, we're trying to get Metro North in a position that it helps drive and create the growth in the county. All of the service improvements I've just talked about, all of this mobility and economic value creates for the county, it does come at a cost, and this is the difficult part of my discussion. Part of that cost, and I know how controversial it is, and I'm so looking forward to the questions and answers part of it, so that I can then go see the funeral directors right after that. I know how unpopular the payroll mobility tax is. I am very much aware of it. But one thing you should know about Metro North, and one thing you should know about all commuter railroads everywhere in the United States, none of them get paid for solely by the fare revenues. Fares only contribute 60% to the operating cost of Metro North. What that means is that 40% comes from other subsidies and other taxes. Quite honestly, that is the lowest subsidy percentage of any commuter railroad in the country. I'm not complaining, I'm just highlighting it, it's just a point. You know, at 40%, you would see if you go to Boston and what they do at the MBTA and the commuter rail lines up there, it's close to the contributions, the actual amount that's paid from the fares is 20%, where the contributions coming from the state and various other taxing forms are closer to 80%. Same thing in Illinois, same thing in Chicago. But it's my job to make the MTA as efficient as possible so that we don't have to increase the amount of subsidies and try to make it as effective as we possibly can. No commuter railroad or even a subway system, as I said before, supports itself on fares alone. And if we don't have these various different forms of subsidies, obviously we have to either do one of two things or a combination of both. We either have to raise our fares to a point in which I think most people would find exorbitant, or at the same time we'd have to cut services. And one of the things that I've learned in what I inherited, the cuts that happened in 2010, everybody still talks about it. And a cut is a very, very difficult thing to do in providing a service to the people. So I'm looking forward to those types of questions. I will tell you the one thing I am worried about is our capital program, the amount of money and the money that we spend on funding for coaches, for new rail, for locomotives, to make sure the system is up and running. I read numerous different things. We need better cars, there's no question. We need ones with better bathrooms. Most people who are going to commute 90 minutes need the opportunity to make a stop in the men's room and the ladies' room in the process. It's really important. We don't have a source of funding for the capital program that'll start in 2015 and 2019. And it's going to become a bigger and bigger issue. Bottom line on all of this that I really want you to take away with is that I think the MTA has a lot of problems. I wanted this job because the MTA had a lot of problems. I know how important the MTA is to the region, the entire region, from the north to the south, out to Montauk, all the way out to the east. It's critical that we have a good mass transit system because we're the lifeblood. We just can't rely on cars all the time. We've got to find a way to be as efficient as we possibly can, and we've got to be both, and also, as well as environmentally efficient. It's my job to continue to slash costs to make sure that we use every dollar wisely as we possibly can, and even in these tough times, continue to increase the services to your customers, who are my customers, the folks who take Metro North every day. Thank you for this opportunity to come up to Dutchess County to talk to you all, and I look forward to answering any and all questions. Thank you.
I would like to thank Mr. Loda for coming here and speaking about an issue, speaking about something that's so vital to our livelihoods here in Dutchess County and can at times be so controversial. We do have time for just a couple of questions. And Charlie has the microphone. I see Mr. Dean, ever quiet, ever shy. Mr. Dean, and we're going to start over here.